For those of you who are on the fence of whether to go in the EV direction or not, there's probably a list of concerns that you have. One being range anxiety, two being, of course, the price, and three, the fact that a lot of EVs just aren't that appealing, not only in regards to the design, but also the technology you'll be interacting with for the interior. It's almost as though brands have completely forgotten that regular consumers who have owned conventional vehicles for 20, 30, 40 years plus are now hopping into a whole new generation for the first time. Today we're taking a look at the 2024 Honda Prologue and leave it to Honda to give us a vehicle that actually looks like a Honda, might possibly feel like a Honda, and also be the vehicle that bridges the gap between hybrid and electric. Today we're going to check out the Prologue, see what it's offering in regards to interior technology, on-road performance, and also of course the styling, and also see why, if you are looking at buying your first ever EV at around $50,000, then maybe taking a look at the all-new Prologue might be a great decision. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Atamian Honda in Tewksbury, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to spend some time with the Prologue. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Honda inventory. One thing I also want to point out too is that I've been working with Atamian Honda for quite some time, and if you do live in the Boston area and you're looking at buying a CR-V, HR-V, Civic, or any other Honda in the lineup, let me know that you're going to be stopping by, because I'll let them know that you're on your way and they'll definitely hook you up with a great vehicle and deal. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. It would be an understatement to say that we've been waiting a while for Honda to officially enter the EV market, as most of their direct competitors have been in this space for a few years. As time has progressed, not one legacy manufacturer has gained a strong foothold at this price point for a mainstream EV, to be the primary choice for consumers ready to make the transition from a gas-powered vehicle to an electrified model. The Prologue represents a new beginning for Honda, and by collaborating with General Motors, they have an EV that on paper and visually appears ready to hit the ground running to compete immediately, but also exemplify what the next generation of Honda should be as we inch closer to the 2030s. Starting off with pricing, the model we have today is the Touring, coming in at a base cost of just under $52,000. And something to keep in mind, it does qualify for the federal tax credits. Since the Prologue utilizes the underpinnings and chassis of the Chevrolet Blazer EV, Honda has one of the larger offerings in this market, outsizing even the Tesla Model Y with a length of 192 inches and a width of 78 inches. Unlike the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, Honda's offering looks and feels like a traditional crossover, which will have a profound effect when it pertains to interior space, and we'll discuss that in further detail later in this video. Refreshing and possibly a benefit for a mainstream brand with a large loyal customer base is the conventional styling of the Prologue that foregoes a futuristic front fascia for something that closer resembles the gas-powered models in the lineup. From far away, it does look like a Honda, despite the obvious cosmetic cues that lets you know it is an EV. However, there's nothing offensive or off-putting like we see from rivals. The Touring will have full LED headlights to complement the unassuming road presence, and further adding sufficient lighting at night, you'll also have fog lights. The contrasting accents also add some definition to the overall design. And since the Prologue is aiming to attract buyers in the luxury market, it also has a subtle yet upscale persona that does set itself apart from its gas-powered siblings. Moving over to the side profile, the Touring will be sitting on 19-inch alloy wheels, and if you go more upmarket for the Elite, you'll receive a set of 21s. As with all EVs, the Prologue benefits from the weight of the battery and electric motors, not only giving this crossover a lower center of gravity, but also a refined driving experience that typically wouldn't be found from a non-luxury brand. You'll have gloss back folding and heated side mirrors with turn signal indicators, to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then as we make our way around to the back, Once again, there's nothing controversial about the rear fascia. Between the thinned out taillights, contrasting accents, and relatively thin C-pillars, there's a number of vehicles you could compare the Prologue's design to, which for a vehicle that may be someone's first EV, that's in no way a bad thing. By keeping it simple and clean, Honda likely has the only crossover in this segment that resembles a hybrid or gas-powered SUV, which may pay dividends in the short and long term. Powering the Prologue Touring, our model has the optional dual electric motors, giving us 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque, and more importantly, all-wheel drive, helping to improve overall performance and year-round versatility. But if you don't want to spend the additional $3,000, the single electric motor may appeal to you if range is a priority, as its near 300 miles on a full electric charge will be conducive if you travel frequently. The 212 horsepower and 236 pound-feet of torque should also satisfy your cravings for speed as well. While the Prologue isn't the quickest in its segment, you'll realize the longer you're behind the wheel that even for an EV, it holds true to Honda's values in regards to on-road comfort and family friendliness that potentially makes it a solid daily commuter. If you do opt for the dual electric motors, which come standard for the Elite, you'll still manage to have a range of around 280 miles, which outclasses the Toyota BZ4X. Stepping inside, you're greeted by power adjustable and heated leather trimmed seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having memory seat functionality. The first observation you'll be making about the cabin is that 1, it feels premium and upscale, and 2, the dashboard layout is different compared to the rest of the Honda lineup, and that's due in part to the fact that the Prologue does share platforms with the Blazer EV. In front of you will be a full digital gauge cluster, offering some customizability, and having the ability to display the Google-based navigation map. Best of all, unlike the Volkswagen ID4 and Toyota BZ4X, the technology you'll be interacting with isn't too far off from what Honda provides in their newest models, which does limit the learning curve associated with a product that's rather revolutionary for the lineup. Then moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 11.3-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. And since we have the Touring, the 12-speaker Bose premium audio system will amplify the audio of your favorite music. While you're not using a Honda-based head unit, button layout and functionality is very similar, as you'll have quick access icons mounted to the left to get you to different menus efficiently, supplementing what's displayed to the right. Worth noting, above you'll have 3 small icons, one for notifications, your exterior lighting system, and the regen braking modes. This will likely be the biggest adjustment for you, as typically there'll be physical buttons for these features. Since the head unit is very responsive and relatively simple to use, you should have no problem adapting to this infotainment system when hopping into the Prologue for the first time. For the Touring, you'll have a rear backup camera with trajectory to go along with front and rear parking sensors. A real surprise is the physical buttons and dials for the dual zone climate control, heated seats, AC, and front and rear defrosters, giving occupants a nice blend of a tech-focused yet analog design. You'll find 2 USB-C inputs, a 12-volt outlet, and a wireless phone charging pad, all within arm's reach. And for the center storage compartment, there's a decent amount of room where you can store a variety of items. Then to round out the front seating area, above, we have a panoramic moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this right here could be the determining factor whether you choose the Prologue compared to a Ford Mustang Mach-e or a Toyota BZ4X, for example. Now we've already talked about the technology, which is intuitive and easy to use, and at least layout-wise is similar to what you've experienced from other Honda products. We've talked about the exterior design, which is very appealing to look at, and also, of course, the range, which is more than adequate. But for the interior space, this right here really does outclass a lot of its rivals, such as that Ford Mustang Mach-e, Volkswagen ID4, Toyota BZ4X, and also Tesla Model Y. If you're looking for a family-friendly EV in this market at around $50,000, the Prologue has to be on your list of considerations from that perspective. Now, if you're on the height of maybe 5'8" or 5'9", you won't be hitting your head on the headliner. I do think you can accommodate people on the height of 6 feet tall. But one thing to keep in mind, though, is that with the Prologue, it does have a lower roof line. So for those taller passengers, they might feel a bit claustrophobic in that regard. But when it comes to legroom, plenty of space back here. This would be similar to, say, a BMW X5 or even a Honda Pilot. So I think that if you're looking for a vehicle that does have that interior space, that's where the Prologue is going to be a great choice. But let's see if you can fit a person in the center seat. Now, not only do you have a fully flat floor here for the Prologue, what Honda did is that they lowered the center seat a bit, so that maximizes the amount of headroom. But it does come at the expense of sitting in more of a ball. However, if you do have 3 average-sized adults sitting back here, everyone should be comfortable. And a lot of vehicles in this market can feel pretty cramped, especially the Volvo XC40 Recharge. So this is going to be a great choice, especially for someone who felt that the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6 just wasn't on pace with what you were looking at from a crossover and SUV. So I just think that when it comes to the second row seating area and just the cabin in general, this is where the Prologue is definitely going to impress you for sure. And then on the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have plenty of legroom here where I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. Also, of course, with the Touring, you have plus seats that feel very comfortable, and again, it just feels very accommodating in here, which I think is a really great attribute to have, especially for Honda's first EV. Also back here, you will have 2 rear air vents to go along with 2 USB-C inputs. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. And then making our way around to the back, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 25.2 cubic feet of room, which is going to be in the middle of the pack in this market. So it is versatile, it is practical, and this just builds off of the overall interior space that we have here with this vehicle. If you're looking for a daily driver or maybe even a road trip EV, you have that with the Prologue, because you can have your family in the second row, you can have all their luggage with them, and that's what makes the Prologue really a great first EV from Honda. I was able to fit all my camera gear today, no problem. So it has 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, and I still have plenty of room to go grocery shopping afterwards, or maybe even throw in some luggage if I was going on that road trip after this review. Now, not installed on this Prologue, we do have the indentations for the rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you have any camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that nobody will be able to peek in and steal what you have. What I also want to take note of with this cargo area is that even though it's not as deep as, say, a CR-V, Pilot, or Passport, it is very wide. And because of that width, you can store a lot of items, and that's what makes it a very practical choice. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 57.7 cubic feet of room, once again falling right in line with its closest rivals. So if you're looking for your first EV and you want that interior space, you want that practicality, you want that cargo room, that's what you have here with the Prologue. Then beneath the floor mat, you are going to find some additional storage for some smaller items, maybe a couple laptops, other electronic gear, and then you're also going to have a compartment where you can store another bag or 2. So overall, this is really a great practical and versatile choice. And then once you're done, just press the button and the liftgate will close automatically. So we're now behind the wheel of the 2024 Honda Prologue. Let's take this EV out for a quick test ride to see how it performs, how it handles, how it drives, how it compares to other EVs in this segment, such as the Volkswagen ID4 and Toyota BZ4X, and also to see if this is the perfect first EV for you. Say you've owned a Honda CR-V hybrid or maybe even a Honda Insight in the past, and you're now ready to go with a full EV product. Well, the Prologue is actually going to be a nice upgrade in regards to refinement, quality, and just the overall performance. Because with this particular model, we have dual electric motors giving us 288 horsepower and 333 pound-feet of torque, also a 0 to 60 time of around 6 seconds, which is par for the course in this market, which is why when I look at the Prologue and how we're going to compare this to its closest rivals from legacy manufacturers, it can't just be the performance, it can't just be the on-road driving experience, because this has the same mannerisms as the ID4, as the BZ4X, as the Ford Mustang Mach-e. The only takeaway I would say here is that with the Prologue is that it's not a sporty SUV in this market, which is not what a lot of people are looking for from Honda. They want reliability, they want the range, they want the comfort, and you're definitely getting that with this vehicle. Now, as I've already talked about earlier on in this video, that the Prologue is sharing platforms with the Chevrolet Blazer EV. And really, Honda is benefiting greatly from this collaboration, because not only are you getting a first EV product for Honda and a year ahead of time, because they're now going to come out with other EV products in the future, but you're also getting a vehicle that feels more complete than its closest rivals. Sure, Ford got into this segment very quick, so did Volkswagen. But when I look at the Prologue from the outside, but also the interior as well, this feels like a traditional SUV. This feels like a vehicle that most certainly bridges the gap between a gas-powered model and a full EV product. And not a lot of vehicles in this segment have been able to do that. And because of that, we haven't seen one specific model over the other really own this segment. And I think the Prologue is designed and ready to do that. Now, I will say this though, as you've already seen throughout this video, I've spent some time with the Prologue, but I'm doing the test drive first. So this is my first time experiencing the Prologue and interacting with it, and I'm genuinely impressed. This gives me a lot of great first impressions just because it feels so refined, it feels so upscale, and that is one of the benefits of going with an EV model. Now, if you have owned Honda products in the past or very recently, you're going to say, all right, so the interior technology is very different from my CR-V and Civic, and you would be correct, because this is similar technology that we see in Chevrolet products, which again isn't necessarily a bad thing right off the bat, because I love the full digital gauge cluster and this nice infotainment system, and it's very easy to use, but also the layout is very similar to what we have in other Honda products. So let's get on the highway here. Let's see what the acceleration is like. And as always, when I do these reviews, there has to be a slow driver in the right lane. Plenty of passing power. No lag at all. But since we don't have the Elite trim today, there is no sport mode. So you're just gonna have one mode, you're gonna have this nice acceleration, you're gonna have this nice quiet experience on the roadways, so you're not going to be able to hear that nice electronic noise when you are accelerating, which I guess is okay, especially if you want to save some money. At highway speeds, it feels pretty composed. Also, road noise really isn't too bad, which again is something that I think a lot of people are looking for in this market. They want a luxurious experience, and technically this would be Honda's first luxurious offering if we're basing it off of pricing, because with the Elite, you're spending close to $60,000, but then again, you also have the tax breaks and you have the federal tax credits that really saves you a lot of money in the long run. Now, another thing too that I really like as well is that because it has a lower center of gravity, you do feel pretty connected to the road, relatively speaking, for an SUV of this size. Also, too, speaking of size, it does feel pretty big. I'm not going to say it feels like a Pilot or Passport, but with the width and even the length, this feels bigger than the CR-V. But it doesn't necessarily translate to the maneuverability of this crossover. You have a nice direct and firm steering, which really helps out with the driving experience as well. You're really going to enjoy your time if this is your first ever EV. On the brakes, nice and strong, and that's without one pedal drive. Very nice, very nice. Provides a lot of confidence. Now back to the interior layout for a minute. Everything is within arm's reach. It has the same persona and interior characteristics that we see in other Honda products. I love the fact that you have physical buttons and dials for the dual zone climate control, but also the AC and front and rear defrosters. That is so rare, but also something I can really appreciate from Honda and what they're doing here with their first EV. What I also like too is that with the Prologue, you have a nice wide center console, a place where you can rest your arm, and this is something that you would see in a lot of luxurious products. So I definitely like the layout and the design of this vehicle. But as a daily commuter vehicle and a family-friendly SUV, it has everything you're looking for. Because with the Touring, I think this would be the pick in the lineup, mostly because you're not spending close to $60,000 before the tax breaks. But also you have the nicer upholstery, you have very comfortably tuned suspension, and also another thing too is you're getting a lot of features for the price as well. And I think that's what makes this a very enticing vehicle right off the bat. And while I think a lot of people are going to say this isn't technically Honda's first EV, this is more a joint venture with General Motors, just keep in mind that this is the prologue to what we're going to be experiencing in the next few years. And I think this is what's going to be setting the tone for what we will be experiencing 2, 3, 5 years down the road. But compared to the Volkswagen ID4, Toyota BZ4X, and Ford Mustang Mach-e, I think this is an easier vehicle to digest and also transition to if this is your first EV. Sure, it's not going to feel like a Honda CR-V, but it is going to feel closer to a Honda product than a Ford Mustang Mach-e is to a Ford, and a Volkswagen ID4 is to a Volkswagen Tiguan. And again, a lot of it is because Honda stuck to more of a conservative design. And again, it leads me back to the fact that this feels more like a complete EV, that it wasn't rushed. And I think that is going to really pay dividends in the long run for this model and for Honda in general, because if they are trying to reach a new target demographic, but also reach a different type of buyer that is looking for a vehicle that is more economical, but also gives you the electric propulsion and the ability to not have to go to the gas station all the time, this is going to be an easier vehicle to hop into, especially if you've owned CR-Vs, Pilots, and Passports in the past. And while a lot of people are going to have that sticker shock when they see that this vehicle is around $50,000 for the Touring, one thing to keep in mind here is that this is going to resemble, not necessarily in terms of performance, but in terms of refinement, to an Acura product. And it feels, in regards to the on-road driving experience, like an Acura, just because of the chassis and the suspension and just how comfortable it really is. Now, one thing that does stand out to me is that there is a decent amount of body roll for an EV, so you don't have that sporty and aggressive experience. But again, I think what Honda was trying to do here, because they're very adamant that they had tuned this chassis for themselves compared to Chevrolet with the Blazer EV, they're giving this vehicle a persona and characteristics that you would experience in a CR-V and Pilot. And that is something that will translate very well to a lot of buyers who are now ready to make that switch. So to summarize my time behind the wheel of the Prologue, because it feels conventional, because it feels traditional to a gas-powered crossover and SUV, even though it exhibits a lot of characteristics from the Chevrolet Blazer EV, more specifically for the interior, and if you're not looking at buying a Chevrolet product and you don't really care about test driving back-to-back, you're not going to notice much of a difference. But the thing here with the Prologue is that it will most certainly speak to first-time EV buyers that are looking at buying a Honda, but returning Honda consumers that have owned products in the past. And I think if they're trying to draw in loyal customers that have a CR-V, that have a Civic in the driveway, they're definitely going to do that with this model. I'm actually really intrigued, though, to see what their EVs are going to be like on their own separate platform and how that will differ from the Prologue. But for a first EV in this segment, when you're comparing it to other models from rivals that are also first-time competitors in this segment, this will hold very well against a Ford Mustang Mach-e against a BZ4X for sure, because the BZ4X is designed pretty aggressively, but also very futuristically. And then also, of course, against the Volkswagen ID.4, I think it's definitely going to be a great alternative. But also another thing too is that even with the range, so say you go with the dual electric motors, you're still getting close to 270 miles, which again is par for the course. And then if you go with the single electric motor, you're getting close to 300 miles. So again, you really can't go wrong with the Prologue, whether you go with one or two motors. But it's the fact that I can leave these people in the dust and I can pass them very safely that makes me enjoy EVs as a commuter vehicle. It's the fact that it is smooth, that it's tuned for comfort, that because you have the weight of the battery and electric motors, Honda and Chevrolet had to accommodate that extra weight. And it gives you this luxurious and upscale driving experience that you're not going to find from the gas-powered models from Honda, from Chevrolet, from Toyota. And if you're looking for a luxury vehicle at this price point, that's what the Prologue is offering. That's what it's going to provide. And if you're looking for that one EV that gives you everything, that gives you the quality, gives you the upscale demeanor, gives you a vehicle that is practical, but also a vehicle with a suitable and adequate amount of range, that's where the Prologue, and for a first EV from Honda, is definitely going to be an appealing option. So to wrap up my time with the 2024 Honda Prologue, what are my final thoughts and takeaways for Honda's first EV? Out of all the legacy manufacturers in this market, I feel like the Prologue is giving you the intangibles of a gas-powered crossover, which most certainly could play in this vehicle's favor in the long run. Because when you're cross-shopping this with the Volkswagen ID.4, Ford Mustang Mach-e, Nissan Ariya, even the Ioniq 5 and Kia EV6, this actually feels like a Honda product, even though there has been a collaboration with GM. As opposed to the Ford Mustang Mach-e, which does not feel like a Ford Escape or Ford Explorer, the Volkswagen ID.4 does not feel like a Tiguan or Atlas, and the Nissan Ariya most certainly doesn't feel like a Rogue or Pathfinder. This isn't going to be a foreign experience to you when you hop in behind the wheel of the Prologue for the first time. And I think that is what's going to give you a lot of confidence hopping in, but also it's going to reassure you that when you are transitioning from gas to electric, this is not going to be a major leap. If you're somebody who has owned a plug-in hybrid or maybe even a CR-V hybrid in the past and you're ready to make that full leap to the EV segment, this will be that easy transition. This will be that natural progression. And that's why I think for a first EV from Honda, this is definitely going to appeal to those who've owned Hondas in the past. Whereas other vehicles that the Prologue is going up against, I think those vehicles are designed to compete against the Tesla Model Y. Whereas the Prologue is designed to draw in people who have owned Hondas in the past, who have owned regular crossovers, and are looking to make that switch. And that's why I think that if you are looking at buying your first EV, take a look at the Prologue, because it might be the last EV you take a look at when you are cross-shopping it with the legacy manufacturers. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.